Yeah.
Shall we? Hi everybody. I'm Shambhavi. I'm a student of NLU Delhi currently. I cleared AILET 2021, and I would like to share some tips and tricks. So basically, I wanted this session to be different because we all know how to prepare. Okay, and there have been toppers before, and there have been quintessential toppers before. But the thing is, AILET is more about strategy than anything. It's not about a higher number of attempts or anything. It's mainly about what you do in those 90 minutes that actually makes a difference. So I wanted to discuss something different here, and thank you, Aryan, for giving me this opportunity. I'm actually more nervous than other participants because I'm not much of a speaker. I can write better. Uh, but yeah, so let's start. Okay, so AILET and CLAT, basically these are like two major law entrances in India. And while CLAT is more mainstream because like um, about 22 national law universities take admissions through CLAT, but AILET it's just in NLU Delhi. So it does not make much sense for students to prepare for one exam, just 120 seats that to have been increased only last year, and it's also kind of difficult. Like it has always been more difficult than CLAT. So um, people are usually hesitant to attempt AILET, but I would suggest, with the current scene, whatever's happening, the patterns has changed. Not only CLAT but AILET as well, and there are other entrances that you prepare for also. So it does not make sense to leave out any entrance. So I think AILET preparation in general is easier than CLAT because it's more well defined. But yeah, it's just that the difficulty level and the lesser number of seats that intimidates the students. Okay, so what is different in CLAT and AILET is that both have now 150 questions only, but CLAT gives you 120 minutes, and AILET gives you only 90 minutes. So it is like there is a time crunch, so you have to focus more on your strategy, and I'll talk more about it later on. But when you compare it to CLAT, like CLAT, after the pattern change, it has become more comprehensive, and this what about 2 years of pattern change, 2020 and 2021. um, we don't really know ठीक कि what might come in ALA 2020, sorry, CLAT 2022 and 2023, and I suppose it will happen twice this year, right? Am I audible?
Yeah, Shambhavi, you're audible. You can continue.
Yeah. So since like CLAT is very unpredictable, it makes sense to prepare for ALET because it has a more precise syllabus. Um, Also, like ALET has been less comprehensive usually. I mean, the level of RCs and everything has been, actually more difficult than CLAT. But lately, I think CLAT has become more comprehensive, and it's actually following the LSAT and GMAT pattern of RCs. So makes a lot of sense also. It gives us a fair idea of what kind of students they want in NLUs. So maybe we could align our preparation with their aspirations and then get to our desired colleges. So hang in there. Uh, with ALET 2022, what changed is that only three sections now exist, that is English, Logical, and GK. And they have also altered the question weightage, the sectional weightage. So it gives us a fair idea of what kind of a student they want in the university. So English is of 50 marks now, logic of 70, and GK of 30. And as they have mentioned also in the notification, that logical section would be given the preference, which means that suppose if two candidates score the same 85 marks, but one scores more in the logical section, that candidate would be preferred over the other. So logical section would be obviously a game changer here. And I think the paper has become more comprehensive and reading based now, um, almost following the footsteps of Clat. So we can't really comment until they release a sample paper. But I think we know what they mean when they say comprehensive, because we've seen what happened in Clat. So why not be prepared for it? Just to mention, I was a dropper for Clat in AILET 2021, and I prepared full-fledgedly. So please keep that in mind if you're in 12th and you're preparing with boards also. Um, so the main question arises is how to prepare, and would I be able to prepare with class 12th? And then what about 4 months left for the examination? I think not even that, about 90 days. And the pattern has changed. So honestly, I don't think it's fair on their part to do that, so close to the examination. I believe they should have given at least 6 months to all the aspirants to get used to a new pattern. And moreover, the sample paper is not released yet. So no more comments. But they should have given at least 6 months. That is actually what I believe. But there's still a good chance that you would clear AILET with good preparation. And if you've seen the past year papers, I'm sure you all must have. I'm assuming that. So with the past year papers, hang in there. Am I audible?
Yeah, Shambhavi.
Yeah. Is it okay if I go on without switching on my
Yeah,
camera?
yeah, no problem.
All right. All right. So I was actually talking about being well versed with the syllabus. And yeah, I think that is also one of the key differences between Clat and AILET, is that Clat doesn't really have a defined syllabus now, but AILET has, and it has always had something like that. And if you see the past year papers, no, so there's a trend of questions that come every year. There are, distinct topics, and it will ask, even just one question from every topic. So it is essential that you touch upon every question type from every topic. And this is for all of the sections. Um, Thank goodness, maths is no more coming in ALET 2022. So that's a yay from me. Uh, but yeah, the legal and logical sections are merged, and we don't really have a lot of clarity there. But all they have said is that you don't need much prior legal knowledge for it. So I'm assuming that don't need to do a lot of contracts, torts, and everything. Obviously, you would need the basics, um, but let's not delve much into the legal section that is now merged in the logical, because we don't have a lot of clarity here. But coaching institutes, a lot of mentors, several institutions like Lightning Dreams itself, they are coming up with mocks. So make sure that you do practice mocks every now and then. And another key difference between Clat and AILET, according to me, would be that um, there is a lot of sectional disparity here. For example, in Clat, you have to, uh, let's say, score average in all of the five sections. But since AILET is so strategic, you could actually get away with performing, average or below average in one section, and then making it up with the your strongest section, like scoring more in your strongest section. That is how you make up for the score disparity. Um, all right, there. I think there is a question in the question box. Um, okay. So, hi Garima. Thank you for the question. And for RCs, I think I have a few tips for you. But like, stay tuned because we're still starting off, and we'll talk about the logical section first, and then we will go on to English. Um, but don't worry about RCs. It's totally doable with practice. All you need is a good resource, and I believe like most students, this is exactly where they get it wrong. They don't get hold on to the right material also. Legal, right? So Garima and Riddhi, don't worry about the legal section anymore, okay? Because there is not much clarity, and they have said that you don't need a lot of legal knowledge for it. So you if you've seen the CLAT 2020 paper, even they said that you would not be needing a lot of prior legal knowledge, and that is exactly what was there in the paper. Okay? I mean, it was fairly easy and doable for a newbie as well. So all you need is a little bit of practice, maybe the past year papers, but that is all. You don't need extra material for legal. And considering like its weightage has decreased, does not make a lot of sense to invest so much time on a section that we don't have much clarity on. Rather, why not focus on English, logic, and GK, where you have some sure short clarity ki, okay, if I'm attempting it and I do the right thing, follow the process, I am going to land on the right answer. I hope that's clear.
Shambhavi, you can continue with your strategy. You can answer the question afterward.
All right. Okay. So, for strategy making, I would say it's a extremely personal approach. So, like, don't follow any toppers, words. Uh, like, it's not a hard and fast rule as such. You don't have to stick to their words like anything. You have to personalize it. That is what matters. And even I did that, and I got a lot of flack for it from my mentors, because my strategy, it does not work for everyone, and it only worked for me, and I knew that it's working, but you know it encouraged other students who were like scoring fairly decent in English, RCs, everything. uh, they could like started experimenting with my strategy, and their scores went up and down, so it was kind of weird. But I must assure you that if you stick to it, stick to your own personal strategy, no matter what others say, you're going to make it. So I can you like hold on for a minute? I'm extremely sorry. Um but yeah, so as I was talking about strategy making, Since there are only three sections now, that is English, logical, and GK, and their weightages have also been, mixed up. So what we need to stick to is a time and section distribution. So earlier, like there were five sections, so you had, a particular time limit in your mind. Okay, I'm not going to give more than 25 minutes to English, then not more than 5 7 minutes to GK. But it has changed now, and earlier GK consisted more of one liners only. So it made sense that we could finish it in such a short span of time, like 5 minutes, or 7 minutes maximum. But since the paper is going to be comprehensive, we don't know about the GK section. But I hope they stick to the one liners, because that is one distinct, like specifically distinct to AILET, and it's actually very fun to prepare. So for the time distribution, as I was going about, yeah. So with the whole pattern change, the ideal time distribution should be 30 minutes for English, or maybe 35 minutes for English. Um, that is 50 questions. Um, 45 minutes to logical section, considering it is both logical and legal, and you would need to read a lot because critical reasoning is also there. So 45 minutes, and whatever's time left, I think 5 10 minutes for the GK section. Um, Ideally, you should be taking not more than 7 minutes in GK, but understand that these are like ideal numbers. Okay, you don't have to stick to it like a rock. um, you can always switch it up, and that is exactly what was my strategy. So personally talking, speaking, I think I am above average in English, and I've had a reading habit since forever. So it was, it did make sense for me to attempt all the 35 questions in English. And I actually scored about 30, or I think 31. So that is where I got my edge over other students. And considering I also spent a significant amount of time on the English section. But as always, like if someone, let's say another friend who was not as good as me in English section, they could give more time to the logical section or the legal section, score more than me, and then get selected. So please keep that in mind, that these are just ideal numbers, and please don't be intimidated. Um, okay, so since strategy is so personal, it has to do a lot with your strengths and weaknesses. So before making a strategy, one strategy for yourself, keep in mind your strongest and weakest sections, because um, like I said, I have been above average in English, so it made sense for me to approach English first and then go on to logical or legal or maybe GK. But since there are just three sections now, and it's more comprehensive, so it's not just application based grammar now. Um, what we need to do is that identify our strongest and weakest sections, and then go in order of strength to weakness. So for example, some somebody's better at the logical section, so they would go first with the logical section. Or might be that you get that boost of confidence by attempting the GK questions first, and you've prepared for GK, you're good at it, so you will be scoring there. So makes sense to attempt GK first. But likewise, as I said, it's only 30 marks in GK. so we know where their focus is. And honestly, 30 marks, does make a lot of difference, but it's still, quite less in comparison to other sections. And GK can be quite unpredictable, so we may not place our bet on it. Um, okay, so as I was talking about strategy, let's go on to the logical section now. So I think there are just like a handful of topics in the logical section of both Clat and AILET. So I think this would be a common factor. Um, and if you're good at it, if you ace it, well, congrats. So for the logical section, I think there are just two distinctions: verbal and analytical reasoning. And in verbal, you have, all these topics like analogy, coding, decoding, clocks and calendars, puzzles, setting arrangement, series, all of that stuff. And you get better at it only with practice. So make sure that you keep practicing and you get hold of some nice material. I think there's a lot of stuff available on Telegram, through Lightning Dreams, and other mentors, past year papers, a lot of books. So these things can only be aced with practice. But other than that, another subsection is the analytical one, where you first start off with the basics of statement, argument, then statement assumption, course of action, cause and effect, syllogism, all of that stuff. And then you proceed on to critical reasoning questions. And I think a lot of students, they get critical reasoning wrong because they don't have these basics right. And unless you actually know how to identify the structure of an argument, specifically, like there's a whole passage given and you can't identify, okay, if this is the premise, this is the conclusion, this is a counter argument, these are like just extra facts, so it gets kind of difficult. But if you are able to do that, you're on the right path and you will eventually get the hang of it. Um, but yeah, once you get used to these questions, uh, proceed on to the questions of GMAT and LSAT for critical reasoning, because I cannot stress this enough. I had solved a lot of GMAT and LSAT questions, and there's a website called GMAT Club. They post questions every day. It's free, 5 questions, and like, they have several difficulty levels. So choose one for yourself. Start from like 350 to 400 marks ka wo question, like it's a question marks bracket or something, and start with the lowest and then build on to more difficult questions. So this is how I actually got better with critical reasoning. Nobody is good at it initially, and it's quite intimidating. But please understand that it only gets better with practice and once you get the basics right. Um, Also, personally speaking, I am an interactive learner. So even if I study alone, it's not going to be as effective if I study in a group. So what I did was, I used to discuss all of these questions with my friends who were also preparing, and they are also in other good NLUs as well. So we used to discuss all of these critical reasoning questions and get to the crux of the argument, everything we used to argue and stuff. And then we actually realized, okay, after like 2 months of preparation, 3 months, we started seeing some improvement in our marks in critical reasoning. So if you're not in getting your marks increased in these particular sections, it's not a problem. You still have time. Okay. Logical may okay. So I think logical section. See, it does have the verbal part like coding, decoding, clocks and calendars stuff, but it also has that analytical stuff like all of the reading and critical reasoning, the basics of critical reasoning, which I call it. And so it makes sense for you to start with analytical and then build on to critical reasoning questions. Right. Okay. So for the logical section, specifically focusing on critical reasoning, um, I would say that there are just a handful of structures in a passage. Okay. For example, um, a passage may start with the side effects of something like the side effects of eating chocolates, and then explaining, going on to uh, elaborate on its pros, and then going on to form a neutral argument. So you it does not matter what your personal opinion is. All that matters is what the author is trying to say. So what is the main idea of the passage? So uh, you get that only once you read the whole passage. But see, there are 3 to 4 paragraphs that you have to read. And also in critical reasoning, it's quite a lengthy paragraph, like about 200 words. I mean, if you've seen the AILET 2021 paper, like, dude, those were some like really lengthy questions, even in legal and critical reasoning. So, makes sense for you to practice really long passages. And I used to practice mocks diligently. And after solving the mock, what I used to do was that I used to sit with those passages, underline, and then identify, okay, this is the premise, this is the conclusion, this is how he got to the conclusion, this was the rationale, and okay, so this is going to be the main idea of the first paragraph of this passage. And I took like a mental note of it. Okay, this is the main idea of the first paragraph. Then only proceed to the next paragraph. I hope you're getting it. And then when I went to the next paragraph, then I also identified the structure, made a mental note. Okay, this is what the second paragraph is about. Then proceed to the next paragraph. So, this is how, I mean, you should be ideally approaching the logical section. And since we don't have much clarity here, but legal section is also merged in the logical, right? So if we do not have so much prior legal knowledge, we should be waiting for the sample papers, but also realize that legal is also lo- um, a very logical section. So if you know the reasoning behind a certain judgment, or why the answer is so and so, why the answer is D and not C, you will have a fair chance of being selected. Also, I think I would share these, overall tips at the end of the session. But let's proceed on to the next section, that is the English section. And yeah, for the English section, AILET does have a very defined structure, a very defined syllabus, parts of speech, application grammar, sentence structures, all of those things. And according to me, I solved, contrary to popular belief, I solved sentence structure and sentence error questions a lot, because they are prominent in AILET. And I think by solving just sentence error correction questions, you you know get better with the usage of certain phrases, words, everything. And even when something is wrong in a sentence, you cannot exactly spot it ki, okay, this is an adverbial phrase, it has been used like that. uh, but you can definitely identify what is wrong with this section. So I think that is enough to clear it, and you don't have to proceed to the next step of it. Also, as I was talking about the RCs, no, um, so I think this is exactly what I wanted to talk about when I said that it is a very personal strategy, and I got a lot of flack for it. So, initially, when I was not good at solving reading comprehension passages, um, I started reading the questions first. So, what, like there are 4 to 5 questions, maximum 6 questions in an RC, and some of them are like grammar based, also vocabulary based, or just sentence error correction, whatever it is. It's not nowhere related to the argument of the passage, so it does not make sense to actually read the whole passage. So I was saving time, and I was also getting my answers correct, so why not go for it? So I started reading the question stem first, not the options, mind you, not the options, only the question stem, and then go on to read the passage. Um, and then another point I would like to focus on is focus on the main idea of the passage more than anything, and the author's opinion, because like those are like two different things: main idea and the author's opinion. So the passage could be about uh, let's say dairy being unhealthy for majority of adults, and at the end of it, the author is of the opinion that you should be consuming dairy even in little quantities or whatever that is, and he's thoda conflicted in his opinion. So those are two different things, right? So until and unless you realize that these are two different things, you will definitely get the questions wrong. So it's essential that you understand the process behind solving every question type. They might look similar, but they are not. Many a times the author's opinion and the main idea, they are like very aligned and they coincide, which is fine. But many a times they don't, and which is why I got the questions wrong. So maybe try to read the question stem first. Ki, what is the author talking about? Or they usually don't get into the details of an RC. They want you to identify the structure only, and not do anything with the structure, unlike in critical reasoning. In critical reasoning, you have to strengthen it, weaken it, then maybe look at the least possible case, most highly likely possible case. Use it, use your brain basically. But in English, in RCs, identifying the structure only, ki how one argument led to another conclusion, that is enough for you to solve the questions. And main idea and author's opinion, all of, I mean, there are just a handful of questions, a handful of question stems. So with practice, you will start noticing the pattern. And uh, yeah, for I think we're done with the RCs, but we still yet to discuss application grammar. So yeah, so there's also one question about my source of grammar for AILET, and I usually relied on a lot of coaching material um from various coaching institutes, not one to mention. But Manhattan's Guide to Sentence Error, Sentence Correction, or something like that. It's called. That's a good guide, I believe. And for grammar parts of speech, you can get it on the internet also. But I would prefer a book, and any grammar book that you've used in high school works. Like all you need to do is like nouns, pronouns, adverbs, adverbial phrases, all of those things. So it makes sense to only use any grammar book that you've used till high school. Also, like I think AILET is very much based in application grammar because um, it focuses a lot on the correct usage of a word or a phrase, right? So even when you've done a lot of idioms and phrases, okay, this is an adverbial phrase. But if you don't know how do you use it in a sentence, they will throw a question at you like that. So keep looking at examples, and I actually got lucky that I refer to these random websites like Bullseye and everything on the internet 2 days prior to the exam, and I was looking at just this correct usage of words and phrases, and that is exactly what appeared in the exam also. So since I had revised just 2 days prior, I had a considerable edge over other students. Um, so I think that is enough for grammar. But moving on to vocabulary. So vocabulary, it can come as it is on its own, or from an RC, and it will then usually have a contextual meaning question. Ren and Martin. No, I did not use Ren and Martin, so I cannot comment honestly. I used Manhattan resource, so I am recommending it to you. Um, and for vocabulary also, I maintained a booklet. I made word clusters. For example, if I am, let's say, uh, clubbing similar words together, then I will jot down, happiness, joy, uh, bliss, ecstasy, words like these in a circle, then make a cross, make another circle, and then jot down, antonyms of those words. So you're not doing just one word at a time, you're doing several. And a word power made easy is a good resource, no doubt, but you actually have to proceed beyond it. Like it's not like if you do that, finish that one book, you're going to be good for vocabulary. I don't concur with that opinion at all. I believe if you could get general competitive exam preparation, those word lists, even for railway, banking, Clat, AILET, all of anything works. You sit with them like 5 to 6 word lists. Um, Most of them will have not more than 4 to 500 questions, 4 to 500 words at max, and a lot of them would be repetitive. So you sit down with them, you see okay what's common, and you will realize that okay there are just about 200 words that keep reoccurring in the exam, and in different ways. For example, if it was I don't remember which year, but since I solved the past year papers about 3 to 4 times, I know that some word, I think in 2015, 14, it came as a question in an RC, and then it reappeared as in an option in AILET 2021 or something like that. So, there are just a handful of words that they are going to twist around and ask you. So, doing vocabulary is fairly easy. Um, and don't be like scared of big words. Yes, in 2008, 9 also vocabulary was repeated. Right. So, good that you've solved the past year papers. I'm glad. Also, I do these vocabulary jams on Telegram, like vocabulary.com. The links come, and I used to practice. You get about 5 seconds for each question, and you have to mark the right answer. And you also get a word list after it, and it's very relevant. And I think I got my speed in vocabulary from there only. So yeah, I actually highly recommend it. And let's get on to the next one now. Okay, so the GK section now. So earlier the GK section was of 35 marks. Now it's 30 marks only. Okay, I'll put it in the chat box. Okay, so the GK section um, in AILET has predominantly been of one-liners. Uh, so it was like fairly easy to prepare in comparison to the present Clat GK pattern, which is like very exhaustive. It's like UPSC light. And honestly speaking, uh, I have been good in English, and like I got better at critical reasoning and the logical section, but I have always, since forever, been terrible in the GK section. Like, um, I could not, just could not get more than a single, like, I could not even get double digits in my mocks in GK. Kid you not. I actually was so horrible at it. Um, but somehow I managed to do it in the last 7 days of preparation. Like, after right after Clat, like honestly, I did not prepare much for AILET GK. In the last let's say 7 days uh, after Clat that there were for AILET, I finished like all of the monthly PDFs from Study IQ and GK Today, and I realized like, array, most of them have reoccurring questions and they are just twisted around. So my primary source was GK Today PDFs, the paid ones, obviously. And what happens is that so if one phrase is the answer in the GK Today PDF, it's going to be in the question stem of the Study IQ PDF. So when I did both, I not just finished it, but I also simultaneously revised it. And I believe if you're not able to revise your GK, for even if you've prepared for the whole year, in the last few days before the exam, it's not going to be fruitful at all. Also for the GK sections one-liners, um, earlier, AILET had used to ask a lot of very deep questions, very specific, peculiar details about a certain topic. So, learning just 3 to 4 facts about a topic seemed like a task. But in comparison to CLAT, it's fairly easy. Like, remembering just 3 to 4 facts rather than remembering the crux of it, the reasoning, some facts, dates also. It's fairly easy. So I think you can do it. And I also believe that you can actually prepare GK for the whole year in a few days only. But you cannot uh, do the same for other sections at all. You need practice there. And since I being terrible at GK section, I was glad to score a double digit in AILET, but since I had already gotten my edge from scoring 30, 31 in English, and about 20, I think anything above 25 in the logical section, and something like that also in the legal section, I could compensate fairly well for my low marks in GK section. So this is exactly the personalized strategy I was talking about, because I scored like average in GK. Also realize that there are just 90 minutes, so you possibly cannot attempt the whole of legal section and the whole of logical section and the whole of English section, three of them being reading sections, completely, and get a score of 9, about 85 plus to even 90 plus, and have a short answer ki okay, I am going to NLU Delhi. ठीक है. Ideally it has to be that you perform average in every section, but this was my bait and I won. So it's not that I studied GK only for AILET. I also prepared for Clat. um and I think the PDFs, the material from Vision IAS, Drishti IAS, and even by Byju's IAS uh, helped quite a lot. Like since my basics of GK are weak, these are the resources I referred to. And I think Byju's IAS is pretty good, but you don't need to remember all of it. I think you need to know, more than anything, what you need to understand is what not to study rather than what to study. Because if you're going all out there, you're like obviously preparing for UPSC, because GK is vast, extensive, and it's never ending. And I've heard people dedicate about 10 plus hours to GK sometimes. And it baffles me because it does not make sense to invest so much time on an unpredictable section. Why not score significantly higher in other sections and compensate for it? Also, for the GK section, I would like to say that keep your resources very limited. Like, I just quoted two, three sources, right? And it's not like I read, India China issue from all of these sources like Vision, Drishti, and Byju's IAS. No, I did not. I would only maybe look at Byju's IAS or Drishti IAS, like one of them, not all of them. So keep that in mind, and don't be intimidated by a lot of sources, because frankly there are a lot of booklets, a lot of resources on the internet. I'm so sorry for the noise. Can you guys give me a minute? All right, I'm back. Sorry for the interruption. Um, yeah, I think with these we are done with the section, each section and what the strategy should be. And now we come to the overall strategy. Um, for all of you who asked questions, thank you for the questions. And starting with Garima,